¿Y cómo dijo? ¿Y cómo fue? Chomita Chronicles. Say yes, I'm here, I'm here. I know, mi gente linda y hermosa, fabulosa. Estoy aquí, yo sigo grabando. Y para ustedes voy a tener una invitada, pero ella se va a introducir y no vamos a hacerlo como en inglés y en español. You know how it is. So, Solimar, go ahead, take the mic. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hola, mi gente. My name is Solimar, and I grew up in the Dominican Republic, Dominicana, y tengo una marca de ropa que se llama Unbothered. Vivo en Los Ángeles, tengo 32 años y amo todo lo que es fashion.
Excellent, excellent. Me parece fenomenal. So, my first question, as I always start, ¿cómo te criaste? Sí que dijiste que vienes eres dominicana, but tell us a little version or the shorter version of how you were brought up. What makes you you?
So I was brought up by very conservative grandparents.
Los
My
abuelitos.
los abuelitos, very Catholic.
My Bible Demand, Chombita Chronicle store is open. Yes, check it out. Chombita Chronicle merch.
I think that my upbringing has made me who I am today. They kept me busy, they kept me focused, and I learned a lot of skills, which I'm very grateful for. My grandma had a saying always like, "El que se aburre es porque no sabe nada." And so I always kind of like took that in and I always try to learn something new and I always try to implement new things into my routine to keep it up and to keep myself excited and stuff. So I think my upbringing, as much as I look back at it and I'm like, oh my God, my grandparents were all upon me. They were always doing,
All in your
but they're
business.
right, but they're the reason I am the way I am today. So I'm extremely grateful.
Super, super. So, you know, sometimes I have three questions like now you told me actually you're in LA. So did you went through this culture shock? You've been, I have like kind of the narrative and why the reason that I started the podcast was because even though I've been here in the United States for quite a while, I my hometown is Miami, Florida. So then I was like, but then when I landed in LA, oh, it was a game change. I was like, oh my God. So tell me, did that happen to you or you acclimated, you adjusted yourself?
Yeah. So funny enough, I lived in Orlando for like 7 years, 6 years, something like that. I first moved to New York, as most of us do when we move to the U.S., especially from the Caribbean
Yeah, my
islands.
family
We all
landed in
go
New
to
York
New
too.
York.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it. The winter took me out. I was like, I can't, I'm from the heat. I'm from the island. This
Ugh.
7, 8 month winter ain't for me. So then I ended up moving to Florida. And that's where I met my husband. And he was born in LA. So he lived in Florida, but he was born in LA.
Oh, how
And
funny.
so I came for like, they had like a family situation. I came for like 24 hours, a little less, like 12 hours. And I fell in love with the city. And I was just like, that's where I want to be. Like, there was something about it. I don't know if it's being near the coast, I feel like there's a lot of Hispanic people in Florida
Of course,
in
of course,
general.
of course,
I
of
just
course.
feel like there's a sense of pride in being Hispanic here that's a little bit different.
Yes, 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 yes. I know what you're saying.
Especially, I would say Miami, there's so much pride in being Hispanic. Orlando is kind of a 50-50, I feel.
I got you.
Or
I got
my
you.
personal experience. And so I just felt like there's also such a clash of cultures here. It's like you can find anybody from any corner of the world. And I think that growing up in DR, and I say this to so many people. I'm like, I think I'm very open-minded because when you grow up in another country, you learn about so many other cultures. They don't
Yes,
stay in
yes,
their
yes, yes, yes,
country.
yes. Mm-hmm.
En los Estados Unidos, yo creo que a nadie le enseñan nada de otra cultura, solamente esa cultura
Oh
americana.
yeah, no, it's very
Entonces,
filtered. It's us.
yeah,
When, como dices tú, te criaste en Santo Domingo o en República Dominicana, and myself, we learn, geografía. We learn where everything's. Yes, I agree with you. I agree.
Even dishes, like you learn about dishes from other countries,
Yeah.
you learn about languages, you learn about, and like here, you learn to speak English and that's it. When you grow up in another country, you learn your language, you learn English, and then they teach you another language too.
Correct.
So it's just here, I feel like I'm more within a cultural diaspora versus when I was in Orlando, or
In the
I didn't
East
give New York a
Coast.
fair chance. New York
Oh,
is
okay. Okay,
definitely
you will make
full
that
of culture,
assessment. Got it, got it.
but I just,
I got you. Yeah, the that's I understand what you're saying, the assessment is really, really, really right, entiendo lo que tú quieres decir because I've been there. So that was your experience. So you out here, you trying your opportunity. So when did you start it unbothered? Like when did that took place?
So
So you
I've always wanted to do fashion since I was little. Always. I was so enamored by fashion shows and the gowns and how pretty it is. And I used to make mood boards. So my grandpa and I had this tradition
Oh,
where like the newspaper he got had like a fashion magazine every Saturday. It was only on Saturdays, and he would bring it to me
right,
religiously, and I would
right.
start cutting up pieces of clothing and putting them in this little notebook. Mind you, I didn't know it was a mood board back then.
Obviously, afterwards.
I
Nice.
was I was like 7, 8, like 7 and up. So then it became more apparent to me that I wanted to do my own fashion brand. And I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I go with women's clothes? I love like all the fashion, all the trendy things. And I was like, no, there's so much of that already. I kind of want to be different. And then I was like, unisex. I started because I started noticing
Mm,
how much I wore my husband's shirts because
correct.
it's so hard for the women's t-shirts. They sometimes they fit kind of weird. It's not like a box fit. It's like they hug you at the hips. You don't necessarily want that. So
For
I
me, it's the
found
top.
myself,
For me, it's the top.
yeah, like it's never like a true like a good fit. So I was like, I want to start a unisex clothing brand because clothing shouldn't be defined by gender. It's we can all wear whatever we want, right?
Right, right.
And so the name Unbothered came from that because growing up, and you grow up in a Latino household, Catholic, it's like las niñas se ponen vestidos, los niños se ponen
Oh,
pantalones.
yeah, the
And
gender, yes.
yeah, and when I used to wear like baggy clothes or anything, even to this day, sometimes my grandparents were like, oh, you look like a boy. And I'm like, why?
Mm,
It's just clothes. So I wanted to bring that in. So like unbother means wear whatever you want, do whatever you want, do what makes you happy, so long as it stays within you and you're not harming anybody outside of you, obviously. But just clothes is clothes. Wear whatever makes you feel good. It shouldn't be determined by the trend, shouldn't be determined by what other people tell you. It should just be something that makes you feel good. Um,
exactly.
and the other reason I went with it is because I saw a gap in the market where they had like the very cheap shirts that you could only wash once and wear
Hmm.
once, and that was it.
Yeah,
Or you have the very expensive shirts, 70,
the
80,
high end.
$90. And I was like, well, why isn't there a middle? Like, why can't we just have a middle ground where like they're
Oof.
not too expensive, but they're good quality? And that's kind
It's
of the where I wanted to come in.
especially these days, girl. Especially
Mhm.
these days. Wow. So that's really interesting. I wanted to ask you, and now with the point that we had a little bit of a prep, when I start the show, I kind of take a time to talk to my guests, and we go into the really good part is the funding, the financing, the affordability, and then in the community, what I see, like you mentioned in before we started the show, the recording, you're like the community is there. And now that I'm seeing your brand, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, why? The reason actually, well, by the time this recording comes through, we had our I say is the second Afro Latino festival. Well, open to the public, but my understanding is that it actually is the fourth one. But I have attended two of them. This is lead by, how you see, the Afro Latino Culture Institute. I will put the links in the show. And I'm like looking, I'm like, ¿y qué pasó? ¿No estabas aquí? ¿No estabas aquí el 20 de julio? That's when it took place in the public. Have you heard about it?
No, I actually haven't. I because I feel personally that, and this again, my experience is that I've had to seek out
You have.
following Afro Latinos, Dominicans, anything here in LA specifically, like I've had to seek that out, like finding
Gotcha.
restaurants.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
couple Dominican restaurants now in LA, and I'm just like, if you don't look for them, they don't like come to
They're not
you
popping
type of
up,
deal.
exactly. And
Yeah.
even in the search of social media, I got you. Even like, honestly, more and more, I really believe that somebody is like, well, we can collaborate, but I definitely believe that there's a directory that needs to be. I think some influencers, creators have been working at that. One of the really good organizations that's been in the what is in the front is the Afro Latino Forum. Sign up for that newsletter. It's really cool. It keeps you up to date with really what is going on, like at least within the United States, nationwide. I'm part of the partners, ambassadors of that. So kind of starts there. And I got you. I got you because every once in a while you want to be searching and browsing and trying to find out what is happening. So tell me, how do you see, the message of your brand and bringing it together with, being more involved? Because you would have been amazing. Because as a matter of fact, I was doing interviews for the vendors that were part of the Afro Latino Festival. But then again, now so you
Yeah, exactly.
you're gonna be
Now I can
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So how new is Unbothered? Like, how long you been in business?
So Bother was founded in 2020, but we didn't go live until November of 2021 because it took me a long time to find the quality I wanted to put out there. I always say to people, I'm first and foremost a consumer before I am a business owner. And so when I'm spending my hard-earned money, I want that return in that piece that I'm buying. I want longevity. So that's why I also making it more sustainable by making the piece better quality, last longer. You don't have to continue to purchase over and over and over again. So that's why it took me a while to go live. So technically to the public, November 2021. But we have been working at it since 2020, quarantine time. So yeah, so that's how it kind of came about. And then, well, I think you had another question after. Sorry.
No, it's not out of question. It's just like, just trying to understand, a valid point of view, like you said, because I also believe that, a lot of the Afro Latino, may that be business or creators, a lot of them, um, is traction, is funding, is time. There's amazing people that I have come across that they doing amazing things. May that be talking about historic timelines, creating travel packages, because then they give you the version historically of what we went through, especially Afro Latino travel, Afro Latina travel. They kind of give you a concept not only to experience what, because as we know, the transatlantic slavery, it was making different stops, different places. And that's why we are. And then obviously it's pinnacle because the story of the United States is that quite different than the rest of Latin America. The United States was fostering separation, division when it came to, race. And in Latin America was, they will call it a mestizaje or blending, but at the same time there still was a caste system, which also is another form of racism, separation of who's who and who's going to earn and who's going to be privileged of having and deserving certain spaces. And that's where we at. And the question that I also usually do with my guests, because the reason that this podcast also came like on the map, and it's been already 4 years, but do you feel that anything has changed so far after or before? Well, it will be before George Floyd. Do you have any thoughts on that?
There's so many. So my husband also had an encounter with police that was pretty
Wow.
similar to George Floyd. So that particular
Wow.
instance really, really triggered me. So much so that I cut ties with longtime friends and all that
Oh
jazz
my God.
because I saw their point of view. I think that social media has played a huge part in educating a lot of people and also in letting us see how many people are truly on our side, right? I think that there has been a shift.
You
I
feel
don't
it?
think that I don't think that we're in a good place per se.
Yeah.
Because we saw Sonia Massey, it's still happening, it's
Right.
still
As
relevant,
we
it happens
recording
every
this,
day.
Sonia Massey happened recently, and we
Yeah.
already with Breonna Taylor and all. Yeah, but yeah, Sonia.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still happening. It's still happening every day. It's still at the forefront. I just think that now the people doing these things are a little more scared because now the tide has shifted. It's like now we're all keeping each other informed.
Yes.
Now they can't keep us in this bubble of like, no, that didn't happen. This didn't happen because now everybody has a phone. Now everybody
You
records.
cannot gaslight us.
Now, yeah, now we have our first, like the point of view from first person. So like now we don't eat what the media feeds us of like, oh, that's not how it happened, or this person was doing this, or this person was doing that, regardless of the fact nobody deserves to lose their life, regardless of what they're doing, unless
Correct.
they're taking other human life, self-defense,
Exactly. If you're
there's
harming
cases.
anybody. Yeah.
But like some people are saying George Floyd was doing bad checks. Well, that didn't grant his life being taken. It doesn't matter. You have people on Wall Street laundering money.
Please. Hello.
So
Oh,
like,
yes. After the bailout, tell me how many people got arrested again? After the bailout of the banks?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, there is a shift. We're not where we need to be. We're nowhere close where we need to be. In my personal opinion, I think there needs to be a huge reform in the way the system works in the US with police, courts, all of the above.
Everything.
It's my belief that all police officers need to go through a thorough psychiatric analysis, and that they need more hours of training because if you think about it, and this is a conversation my husband and I have often, to become a lawyer, you have to go to school for a long time.
I agree. Yes.
You have to take a boards test that determines whether you can be the bar determines whether you can be a lawyer or not.
Correct.
To be a judge, then you have to be a lawyer for a while. You have to really get to know the law. And there's still bad apples in every tree. That doesn't
of course,
make
in
people
any
better.
industry in general.
In any industry. But you look at police officers. So these are the people who are supposed to enforce the law onto other people. They train for hours. A few months. I think it's like 3 to 6 months, depending on the state. That's their training. And I'm like, so you have the people who actually interpret the law, go to school for years, almost a decade. And then you have the people who enforce the law, get this right and this badge after 6, maybe 9 months of training.
Right.
So that to me doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that's something that needs to be looked into and reformed and made better. And listen, again, not all cops are bad cops.
Correct.
There's bad apples in every tree. I'm not gonna put everybody in the same in
Yeah.
the same pot. I just think the system itself needs to be reformed.
Oh no, I definitely we both agree because I have family members obviously in the service. But yeah, I'm glad that you and I want to be also, I'm glad that you wanted to share that, you know, and I'm sorry that your husband went through such a episode. And as I said, but then we have the power to learn, hopefully also use this information, not weaponize it, but in fusing and acting more and be more involved and taking actions, may that be through your brand, may that be through what you share in your experience. And then you walk in enforcing, like we said, the system needs to change and you are more alert. I believe in voting and there's many ways that we can do, be part of the board, local board, your school board. There's local elections, there's state elections, there's many ways that we can participate in the system.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm
I
going to
agree.
do.
Your
So
voice is in your vote. So
exactly,
yes.
exactly. I'm like, everybody's like, oh, but I don't want to go. I'm like, not everybody has to literally put themselves physically protest. If you want to, you could. But there's several tools that we have available for us to also force or engage in that process of making changes locally,
Yes.
but think globally. But so I'm gonna segue and say, okay, what makes you proud of what you're doing? ¿Qué te hace feliz? Being an Afro Latina, and what is the message that you also want to share with other entrepreneurs or people that are thinking, that space that we're creating? I will say, after so many years having that space, I've been longing for this. And I was like, what is going on? Why we don't see ourselves? Well, finally we're coming out, the community is getting bigger. And even if I'm meeting one by one, like maybe it's happening to you too, it's like, okay, I have something. And y sigue creciendo and it's really beautiful. What is your message?
So my message to all Afro Latinos is that you're here. You deserve everything that's coming your way that's good, all the blessings, and take up the space. We need to be proud of taking up the space. We need to stop making ourselves smaller to fit into spaces. No, the person next to you that gets all the rewards and all the glory, you deserve it as much as they do. And I think that, as you mentioned earlier, our countries are a little bit different in the way they go about
Yeah,
race
Latin
and color.
America.
We're
Yeah.
we're not like, oh, black or white or whatever. We're whatever country we're from. But there is a lot of internalized racism. There is a lot of passive racism that happens. And in my country specifically, is that people with lighter complexion, with not curly hair, with straight hair, get put on a higher pedestal than anybody else. And so I thankfully was raised by a grandmother who's like, no, you're you and nobody can be you. And you take up the space you need to take
That's
and
amazing.
you shine. And so that's the one thing I feel like, don't try to change yourself. Like some people have tried to tell me, like, you're black. You just need to claim you're black. And I'm like, I am, but I'm Afro Latina. I'm not just black.
It's like,
you
whose
know?
question is it? It's like, okay.
So like, I've gotten that comment before of people telling me that, and I'm like, well, you can't
I'm like
erase
that.
my heritage though.
Correct,
So
correct,
for
correct,
me,
correct.
I'm first and foremost Dominican. That's where I came from. I never had to check black in a box when I went to the doctor, when I went to get my ID, when I did anything. I moved to the US when I was 17, so like I was pretty much of age already. So I would say that don't let anybody diminish your culture. Don't let anybody take that away from you. Stick
Yeah.
to who you are, because at the end of the day, even if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a service, if you offer a service or if you sell a product, people are first and foremost buying into you,
Mm-hmm.
and the product comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care because there's 1,000 other people doing the same thing you're doing. What makes your product stand out is you. So you
Correct.
have to be you. And for me, Bother, and I know that this was part of the question. Something I feel proud that the brand does is that we try to give back as much as we can as a small brand.
Wow.
And
Love
I
that.
do donations throughout the year. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, we were able to donate over $400 to Planned Parenthood.
Hey, that's
We've donated to the Trevor Project through the NAACP Defense Fund.
sweet. Sweet.
It's on our webpage, so there's like a whole
Excellent. So no,
list
that's
and
great.
receipts.
That's great that you
But
mentioned it. And as I said, sometimes people think like, oh my God, I have to do something incredibly big. It makes a
any
difference
cent
for every,
counts.
yeah.
Yeah. And with Hispanic Heritage Month, we are putting out these shirts that say Di que unbothered. And we are donating to an organization. We're donating 15% of the proceeds with the purchase of every shirt.
Excellent. Okay. So I am definitely going to extend an invitation for you to be there next year.
Yeah.
You know, and I will send you the links. And I would like also for you guys to participate. The West Coast has something for us, Afro Latino, African American, everybody that is part of the diaspora. And also we have allies. There's people that want to just get involved for being part of this. So Solimar, estoy súper contenta que llegaste, que me encontraste. You found the Chombita Chronicle podcast. These are the stories that I like to always share, to be part. And now that I know that you're in LA, I think the next time I'm going to create also a reel and I'm going to check out your
Yeah.
store.
We
And
gotta get
we're going to do something
together.
fun. Yes. And such a pleasure, echando pa'lante. And as I said, uno por uno, granito a granito estamos llegando and we covering the space. I liked it. I am so proud of you. And definitely I wish you all the best, which it seems that you're really going to. And that's it, guys. So, next edition, El Chombita Crónico. Nos vemos en la próxima, mi gente linda, hermosa y fabulosa. Chao, chao.
Thank you.
All